Welcome to episode 97 of the Backlot 605 podcast as we return to Oz. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman.
I'm Brian Mensing.
And Brian, we are talking Return to Oz as we continue our 1980s fantasy films mini-series here for the month of September. And that is going to be our main topic for today in the second half of the show, because we got to go over our usual spiel of the box office, the news, the coming soons.
Our spew, as Derek would say.
Our spew, yes.
Our spew.
We will be joined in the second half to talk about Return to Oz by Logan Schwanke. He is a comic book creator and writer from the area, and we'll talk about him about his comic book and, of course, the movie of the week, Return to Oz. But, Brian, there's one thing I do have to bring up here at the top.
What do you have to bring up? What are we returning to?
I'm not returning to anything. I'm going to eat something. Okay. It's my
you're going to eat your words?
I'm going to eat my own words.
I like this.
So
is this another one of those things where I should have put money on it?
You should have put money on it. And the reason we're talking about it is we are talking about The Babysitter 2, Killer Queen, which just dropped on Netflix this past weekend.
Yes.
Movie I was not excited about at
Why
all.
were you not excited?
Because this little actress named Samara Weaving was apparently not going to be in this one. But spoiler alert for Babysitter, Killer Queen. She is. She's in the movie. And so I finally gave the movie a chance, and I have to say, I liked it. It's just as good as the first one.
I would have to agree. I think the girl that plays the little girlfriend and whatnot definitely holds her own in the respect of kind of being like, Samara Weaving 2.0, if you will, because those were big shoes to fill. And I think she does a fantastic job of kind of doing that.
Emily Allen Lind.
Yes.
She was in Dr. Sleep last year, and she was really great in that too.
I guess I have to go back and watch Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, I dug this movie quite a bit. It's a fun 90-minute ride. Hour 40, a little longer, but it's a fun time. Definitely the exact same tone as the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a remake of the first movie. It's definitely a continuation, but we do kind of hit on some of the same beats, it's what it is. It's just a fun horror comedy.
It's a great home popcorn film.
It is.
And I this one here, I stand by exactly what I said about the first Babysitter is, even though, it revolves around the kid and Samara Weaving for the first one and whatnot, me personally, the ensemble cast that is brought in as like the cult members, if you will, I think for me add to it and whatnot, and them bringing them all back for the second go around and whatnot, me personally, Robbie Amell crushed it. Like his attitude towards everything, like, when every time the kid was doing anything like that, he's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, he gets kicked in the nuts. He's like, that sucked, but good job, kid.
There's a great running joke in the whole movie. And this time around, he just is shirtless the entire time.
Yep.
And even in flashbacks where he should not be shirtless, he's just shirtless. It's a great visual gag in this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I did like King Bach's note, because the fact that he makes it as far as he does, and he was like, this is the perfect post Jordan Peele era. I'm the black guy, and I've made it further than half you white people.
I think the MVP this time around, where I think last time was Samara Weaving, and she's only in the movie, for the last act, which is fine. I think the MVP for this movie is, especially since he gets more screen time this time around, Ken Marino.
Yeah,
is great as the dad in this movie. He is
fantastic. Side note, when this came out and Derek and I had already watched the film and whatnot, we knew that you had not. I immediately sent a message to Derek. I'm like, man, because I knew that he had already sent you that Samara Weaving was in the movie to make you change your tone, to make you want to watch this movie. He's like, he clocked it, and Samara Weaving was in there a total of 10 minutes. I'm like, man, Casey's going to be pissed.
No, she's in the movie. That's all I cared about. And I mean, she was probably on set for a day, which is fine. And it's what it is. But it wouldn't be a Babysitter movie without her. And if we do get a third one, I would like to see where it goes. I want to see where we go with the third one.
Yep, being so how it ended, I would be definitely right there with it. And frankly, if they figured out a way how to bring everybody back again, maybe if we get another one in 2 years again, kind of thing, I would be all for that.
Yeah. So yeah, we both really liked it. I definitely eat my words, and it's a fun time. It's a perfect like setup into the Halloween season. This like if you're trying to make a Halloween playlist, throw this one on it. This is a fun watch. Yeah.
I agree.
All right. Anyway, that's our little spiel at the top here on Babysitter Killer Queen on Netflix.
So what about the box office? How about let's talk about the box office.
Let's talk about it because at number one this week, of course, once again, is Tenet. At number one, $6.7 million here.
Yeah, they got my money again this week.
They will never get my money again. So Tenet's continuing to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Not the money they wanted to make, but it is making money.
Considering right now, this is pretty good if you ask me. I mean, just in general. I mean, everything could be obviously far worse. After other things coming forth and whatnot and losing potential screen times and whatnot, as we'll talk about in a little bit here. I think this isn't that bad, to be honest.
I talked about it last week. I don't think these numbers are great, and now I think Warner Brothers and everybody else is like, oh no, we should have waited. And it's like, well, yeah, you might have, but again, I get why.
But also,
you need to start making revenue at some point, especially for movie theaters, especially.
Also, too, from what Derek was saying to us, though, here is Tenet or Warner Brothers isn't releasing actuals, though. They didn't release actuals for this weekend, I believe, and they didn't release actuals for the Broken Hearts Gallery either. So I think these are just more of industry kind of estimates are. So it could be up, it could be less. Don't know.
The fact that they're not saying it leads me to believe it's probably not higher.
Well, definitely probably not higher, but at the same time too, it's probably one of those things where I get why other studios are kind of a little mad because Warner Brothers is doing this, but at the same time too, Warner Brothers is probably trying to figure out how to lose at least as little money on this as possible. So I don't know.
They're the ones taking the risk. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Number two, The New Mutants, $2.2 million. Number three, Unhinged, $1.5 million. Number four is The Broken Hearts Gallery, $1.125 million in its opening weekend. Number five, which was a Canadian-only released, is After We Collided, $525,000. And we got to talk about it. Number six, Bill and Ted Face the Music, $265,000 at the box office.
Yeah, Bill and Ted.
And one thing from last week, we mentioned Bill and Ted did not make the top five. It actually did last week, but the numbers were not in yet for Bill and Ted. So just bringing that up.
We got robbed.
We gushed about it enough.
Exactly, because Bill and Ted is awesome.
Let's move on to the news then, because we have some interesting news. It's quite an array of news to talk about this week.
Granted, it's not a lot of news because, we're running in the world of there's not a lot of news. But yes, this first one here kind of comes out of left field, but considering who we're talking about, don't call me shocked. In that it sounds like Sacha Baron Cohen, who, hey, is who he is, supposedly has shot, filmed, and even screened Borat 2.
Very nice.
Very nice. Maybe one of these days I'll actually get around to actually watching Borat.
So, Borat came out in 2006. We have all heard, it's one of those movies we've all heard the quotes from a million times. I've never watched Borat. I was also 12 years old when this movie came out. Probably not old enough to watch Borat.
Probably not, but if it makes you feel any better, I've never watched it either.
And this seems like one, I think Sacha Baron Cohen in many of his comedies since then is still trying to capture this magic that he had with this movie. obviously with Bruno and the Dictator, and what
Mm-hmm.
was the one he did? The brothers Grimsby.
Oh yeah, with Mark Strong.
Yeah, so he's constantly been trying to capture this magic, and I think maybe he's figuring at with the political climate in the U.S. now, probably a great time to put out Borat 2.
Heck yeah.
With all the stuff he could definitely get into going undercover as Borat. And even I think enough time has passed where people can still not fully recognize who Borat is, because he's definitely was a hot item at the time and then kind of forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might still play well here, having a Borat 2 come out. I would assume now next year, if he's already screened it, and who knows what else is going on with it. But
Coming to VOD next week.
it could, for all we know.
It definitely, because you know what? I this would be one of those movies where I would be curious. It kind of makes me want to go see the first Borat
Mm-hmm.
here. But this doesn't seem like, especially right now in today's climate, that this is going to be one that is going to be successful in the theater, and that we would be just more hopeful that we get a decent like VOD release.
Definitely going to be a cult following thing,
Mm-hmm.
much like the first movie was, and that was a word of mouth movie most of all.
Oh yeah, that was definitely more grassroots.
Yeah. So yeah, Borat 2, very nice.
Very nice. So going on and moving out of the weird that is the Sacha Baron Cohen, we're gonna get into welcome to the October shakeup. Like this is definitely putting a lot of people on check here, theaters included. Wonder Woman has been moved out of its October slot and moved to December 25th. And also with that, that has also moved Candyman out of its October slot, which I'm actually kind of upset about because I had the day off the day this was supposed to come out. I had a plan. Um, catch to Candyman. Candyman does not have a release date. It is currently TBD.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder if this is going to be going possibly the antebellum route and going straight to
Well,
VOD.
I saw Nia DaCosta put out a tweet
Okay.
about this, and she said this is meant to be seen on the big screen. And from the studio that this is coming from, this is, they wanted on the biggest screen possible. They want this in the theater. This is their tentpole horror movie for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think Universal will be putting this, and I mean it has the Jordan Peele name attached,
That's true.
and that's definitely going to help this for this movie to have the ability to be released in theaters next year. But
Well, here's hoping.
yeah,
Maybe maybe then it'll shoot for like maybe like that February horror market, because there's kind of two times in horror plays well, and it's usually weirdly enough for like around the Valentine's Day, February, March,
Mhm.
spring and whatnot, and then obviously around October, fall kind of thing. So maybe that's what they'll
Mhm.
shoot for. Maybe they'll shoot for that February, March.
Yeah, I think they're going to shoot for earlier in the year next year, because Universal also has Halloween coming out next Halloween. Not
Hmm.
going to want to bog it down with both Candyman and Halloween the same month. So
Or the fact that, and they're probably going to want to push it before next, when Fast 9 comes out next year too. I mean, Universal is going to have a lot of 2021 movies now with everything getting bumped on. I mean, granted, every studio is, but I mean, there's some good like big heavy hitters that Universal has slated for next
mhm.
year, thanks to this going on plus what was already scheduled.
And that's a very curious thing, is because the things we've been talking about in the box office, especially like Tenet, is Warner Brothers isn't really shying away from putting out the movies in theaters right now. Except now they're kind of, I think, looking at some of the box office returns for Tenet,
Hmm.
and it's leading them to say maybe we got to take a step back on some of these other movies,
Yeah, I mean
because
the fact that they pushed for Wonder Woman to be pushed back where it
mhm,
is, and even now, I mean, we're granted it's September and November or December is still as far away as it is. I don't even have the expectation that guaranteed that I'm going to see this on Christmas.
Yeah, I think it's definitely will keep updating on this because I'm very weary of it staying on its Christmas release date. But it also is now Tenet or not Tenet. Wonder Woman has now been pushed into the month of Dune, which definitely leads me to believe they have not done this as of this recording. They will probably do it this week. Uh, Dune will not stay in that December release
No,
date. It'll
no,
get
no.
pushed to 2021.
Oh, easily, because Dune is what's slated for December 18th. So
Yeah,
then have Dune come out, and then a week later have
Wonder
Wonder Woman
Woman.
come out.
Yeah.
Nah, they wouldn't do that to themselves.
hmm So yeah, we'll keep updating on this. And again, we this was the big talk, a couple months ago on the show is, oh well, this got pushed back again, and I think we're unfortunately going to enter into that once again. Things getting pushed back, and I mean, these were the two big new releases that were going to be coming out here in October was Wonder Woman and Candyman. Both
Hmm.
are pushed out, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other studios do for the October November release dates. But
Yes.
let's get into these Oscar rules, Brian.
We'll try because there were so many of these proposed rules, or not even proposed. I apologize. These are what is supposed to be slated for, like for the 2024. I think is when everything's supposed to be like. That's when everything is in full effect.
Mm-hmm.
Is and I get where they're going with this here, but it's also at the same time too, it's a little convoluted. But basically, the Oscars are going to be putting in certain stipulations specifically for Best Picture for a movie to qualify. It's going to have to meet certain requirements in terms of representation within the film, which again, I'm all about representation. It definitely needs to be something that needs to happen. You look at some movies of old and you're like, okay, that white dude is playing whatever the case is. It definitely, you need to have accurate representation in a film. And it's just going to be a matter of how is this going, my question is, how is this going to affect how movies are going to be made going forward? Because they want to be able to make a movie with the expectation of we're going to make a movie so we can make sure we qualify for Best Picture, as opposed to making a movie to make a good, solid movie.
Yeah. So when I heard about these rules, I was kind of two minds because I get what they're doing with these rules, and obviously
Right.
we all want more inclusivity in our movies. We want to hear other stories. And I mean, I'm looking at the article here from IndieWire, and the movie they have, the picture they have is from Moonlight, and that's a movie I've gushed about before. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing in terms of Moonlight itself is I'm not a gay black man in America, but I connected to this fantastic movie. And I think
Correct.
that's how every movie should be. It shouldn't matter if you're a man, woman, child, any color, any sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. A great movie about great people and great stories is that. And one thing I think the Academy is kind of uh, I don't know what the right term is, but basically the Academy is trying really hard to save face right now with these
Mm-hmm.
rules to me, because I think earlier in this year they already did the best thing they could have done to have a more variety of films, and that's
Mm-hmm.
adding more Academy members of these minority groups.
Agreed.
And that makes sense to me. It's like continue to do that. Like that makes a lot of sense. Let's keep adding more Academy voters and ones that are underrepresented, so we can get these other films out there.
Or even the fact that then you have a justification of, so was it 2016, 2017 when all of like the major awards were all white people? um that it's like, if your academy is x amount of this, x amount of that,
Mhm.
x amount of this, and say, okay, this was the inclusive of all of these, these are who they voted for, as opposed to putting the rules in that says, well, this one can't qualify because the film itself doesn't meet this rule, or something to that effect. I agree with you. I think it needs to be based off of what does the academy say, not necessarily what is the rule set, if you will.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, when in 4 years from now, when these are implemented, I don't think they're going to be needed. I think this is kind of a precaution for them to have. It's a
Yeah.
back burner rule where I don't think it'll ever need to be implemented. Where I
No,
think
because
if you have the new group of Academy voters in there, and I mean looking at the requirements for this, most of the Oscar movies already hit most of these requirements, so it's not going to be that hard for them to do going forward. It just feels like do we need to have these rules in place? I get why we have them, and maybe it's good to have these as a backup too, which is fine. But again, they're not necessary. But I get where the Academy is coming from by putting them in the voting.
yeah.
So yeah,
So there's that.
So and again, the Academy they're at least making changes. I'll give them that. They're at least making changes, and it's a good step forward. But yeah, that's all we got for news this week. Again, kind of a slow movie news week. Let's move to coming soon. You can go check out our coming soon article on Backlot 605 each and every week, written by Derek Vierink, giving us all the latest movie news coming to theaters and to streaming. This week is a streaming only week, as we first kick off with what was scheduled to be a theatrical release earlier this year, which was Antebellum. This is one of the first movies that was pushed out of its original release date to an unknown release, and then now will be coming out on premium VOD here September 18th. I believe it is at the $19.99 price point, unlike the Mulan, the $29.99. So I think it's in that $19.99 for rental. It is a mysterious horror film. Comes from the non-Jordan Peele producers of Get Out and Us.
I love that. The non-Jordan Peele producers.
Janelle Monáe stars in this film. Obviously, like we said, it got pushed back a couple times. I'm sure everybody at this point has seen the trailer. It was playing in theaters quite a bit at the end of last year and into early this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, and this might be the first time I break out that's premium VOD. I haven't done it yet, and this might be the one because I was very, very much looking forward to it.
You do that, I'm coming to your house.
Yeah, let's do it. Movie night, Antebellum. Yeah, this looks like a good kickoff again. Like I said, with The Babysitter, Killer Queen, another good 2020 release to have in the spooky season. The other one we got coming up, this is a Netflix original movie. Comes out September 16th. It is The Devil All the Time. It is a Midwestern Gothic tale following a group of sinister characters from the 1960s Ohio, including an unholy preacher played by Batman himself, Robert Pattinson, a serial killer, Batman, doing a fantastic Southern accent, a serial killer couple, Jason Clarke and Riley Keough, crooked sheriff, Sebastian Stan, and a young man, Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland, and they have to fend them off. It also stars Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård in this movie, directed and co-written by Antonio Campos.
Yes.
So, The Devil All the Time. This
looks good.
This looks really good.
This definitely is one of those ones where I'm definitely looking forward to turning on my Netflix that day and getting this watched, because this definitely looks like one I don't want to lay to the wayside, i.e. Extraction. That I still haven't seen. This one definitely looks like one I definitely want. I mean, and it's got a good solid cast behind it. Like,
that's a really good cast.
Yeah. Like, again, Robert Pattinson, like, it's one of those, it was one of those trailers where you're watching, you're like, oh, it's got so and so else, it's just it's a stacked cast.
Yeah, I think Robert Pattinson looks really good in this movie. Very different role for Pattinson in this. One actor that I think is just underrated in everything, and I love him in everything that he's in, Jason Clarke. I love Jason Clarke. He does not get the recognition I think he deserves, and again, he looks great in this movie too. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking that one out.
Oh, agreed.
The last new release that we got coming up is a Shudder original film. Spiral comes out September 17th. The same-sex couple.
Not that Spiral.
Not the Saw Spiral. This is a different Spiral. It is about a same-sex couple and their 16-year-old daughter who move to a new town in search for a better life. But Behind their welcoming neighbors lurks something sinister.
Behind closed doors.
Spiral, Shudder. What'd you think?
I'm intrigued. It is one of those ones where it's like I kind of wish I had Shudder. Maybe we got to go to your house and do a double feature of Spiral and
Antebellum.
Annabellum, just so I can try to get both of those watched. Because it looks interesting. I can never remember his name, but and this is probably just one of those things where it's like, whichever. Um, oh my god, I only know him as Cliff from Dead Man on Campus, but it was one of those ones where I was like, oh, I recognize that guy. I kind of want to see this even more. Nobody knows who this guy is, but I do. What did you think of the trailer?
I actually have not watched the trailer yet.
What?
Yeah, I'm really behind on my Shudder stuff. Like they've been releasing stuff almost weekly, and I'm kind of behind. I need to have a Shudder weekend really and catch up on a lot of these. And yeah, Spiral definitely seems like one of those. And like even looking at this poster, it I could see how definitely people will get this confused with the Saw movie. Has this the spiral in it, the iconic looking spiral from Saw. Has the same name as the new movie coming out.
I was trying to find an IMDb and I pulled up the wrong one. Mm-hmm. So nope, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna add this to the long list of Shudder originals to watch, and yeah, I'll probably check it out in the next month or so here during spooky season.
Spooky.
But that is not it for coming soon. We do have a South Dakota related item that we got to talk about here.
Ooh, what is that?
This is the South Dakota Film Festival, which is going to be held online. So usually held in Aberdeen every year over a weekend. This will be an over a week-long event from September 17th through the 26th. This year's festival, like I said, held online. It is also free access, so no fees to get in or watch these films online. It includes 57 shorts and features. It has Q&As with some of the filmmakers involved. I was kind of checking some of these out as we're talking. Like this will drop, when the episode drops. They have quite a slate of films, including 3 narrative features involved, which is a pretty big thing to have at a film festival here, especially in like South Dakota. It's usually a lot of short films, but having 3 features is pretty cool. I'm going to definitely check out some of these, and it's definitely a mix and match thing. If you watch a trailer for something and it catches your eye, it's going to be there for your viewing. So definitely looking forward to that. And actually looking at this list here, one of the movies listed, I'm not going to pronounce this name correctly. I think it's called Duende. It is a film that was shot here. I believe it was shot in Sioux Falls. It was directed by Dewey Nordsman, who is from Sioux Falls. He's part of the South Dakota Film Community Group, I believe. But I saw this at Dancing Spider. And this is a good movie to watch during spooky season. Perfect spooky movie. It's about this a Native American ghost story and how it may actually be more than just a story.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so it was a good time. Definitely go check that out. I'm looking through here, Brian, to find if you and I may appear in this film festival. It doesn't look like it. Come on, Tom.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, so but there is, like I said,
oh my god, I said that out loud, and I literally came to one of the shorts on there this year is maybe next year. It's literally called Maybe Next Year.
It's like a good 2020 movie, maybe next year.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely go check that out. Go check out their website, southdakotafilmfest.org. You can check out all the trailers for everything that they have. And if anything catches your eye, obviously, like we said, free to watch, and definitely go support a local film festival. We only have a few of these here in South Dakota. Definitely give them a big shout out and support on those. So
agreed.
All right, that's what we got for coming soon for this week. Kind of a slow week, and I think we'll kind of unfortunately have that for a little while going forward. A couple slow weeks.
A little bit.
I know October is kind of gearing up that a lot of the stuff that was going to be coming out in October is still scheduled for that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's what we got coming soon for this week. Go check out our article on Backlot 605 to find a list of everything else that is coming soon for this upcoming weekend.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to take a small little break, and we'll be right back on the second half of the show to talk about Return to Oz.
Yes.
Casey here again. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to our horror-themed podcast, The Killer Countdown, that I co-host alongside Blake Ginnethan and Sam Lenz. This show is nearing the end of its run, the final chapter, if you will, as we have a few episodes left of that show. So be sure to go check out some of our latest episodes, including Best Final Girls, Best Creature Features, Best Horror Scores. Again, this is nearing its final run, which we will announce a little special something that we have planned for this final chapter. But stay tuned. Once again, that is the Killer Countdown, available right now on this podcast feed.
Welcome back!
Yay! Brian is leading us right back into our introduction for the second half of our episode here, as we're going to discuss 1985's Return to Oz, as we are halfway through our 1980s miniseries. We're talking about some of the best fantasy films from this decade. And one that I feel just doesn't come up in the conversation quite as often as some of the other ones we have talked about and will be talking about in this series.
It should. It totally should.
It definitely should, and we'll get into that. But yeah, me and Brian are going to be joined here in the second half by our guest, Mr. Logan Schwanke.
Hi.
The you may recognize.
Sounds like the birds from Finding Dory. Mine.
You may recognize his voice, as he was one of the co-hosts of Anime Anatomy, which was on the Backlot 605 network for a while. But Logan got busy doing a little something I want to talk about here first, before we return to Oz. I want to talk about Logan's new project that he's been working on for the last 2 years almost.
God, it feels like it at this point. It really does.
Which is a comic book series called Polarized. I remember first having you still live in our hometown of Rock Valley, and you came up one night and we went out to eat, and you're like, I have a comic book idea. And you told me about it for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, I really can go.
Yeah, and here it is, Polarized. I'm gonna call you Schwanke just because I'd never call you Logan. For all the years I know you, I have called you Logan maybe once, and it was on accident. If everybody is confused as to why I'm calling him Schwanke, that's his last name, and that is what I have called him for the last 20
ever.
Years. No.
I might just have to do that just so that my kid doesn't try to come in the room thinking I'm talking to him.
There you go.
Yep. That's the reason I was called Schwanke in high school. So.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to call you by your first name, or what?
2 kids called Logan in high school. So.
Yep.
And he got the last name of it.
Yep.
So, Schwanke, let's talk about Polarized. What is your comic book about? We have a Facebook page up. I believe we've shared it before, and I will obviously share it again on this, and definitely get people talking about it, because comic books are awesome. All three of us love comic books. Brian goes back to, you always talked about the 90s was your era of comics. I was late to the game in getting into comics, but obviously comic books are a huge thing right now. They make some movies about them. Did you know that?
Yeah.
A couple of them.
A couple of them, 1 or 2.
Just a few, 20.
Yeah, Polarized. What's the synopsis of the book, and what's it all about?
So Polarized it's an origin story that's not an origin story. It's a lot more of it's heroes becoming heroes. It's not them getting powers. It's them actually deciding to use their powers for something better than themselves. So this first book deals heavily into that. It's 2 brothers that are going to be our main protagonists throughout this book. You got some minor supporting characters, and basically they get these 2 powers whenever they're in a near-death situation. I'm not concerned about sharing that. It's in the book. It's early on, first 20 panels. But so they get these powers when they're in a near-death situation. It's linked on epigenetics. I think it's what it's called. But so it kicks in. gives them these superpowers of like one that they want and one that helps get them out of their situation. So it's going off of that. It's how they handle it throughout their world and then how they handle themselves. Because a large part of what I want to do with this book is help people. I want to make people smile. I want them to give a reason to smile and go about their day happy. So
I think 2020 needs a smile.
I think so
You
too.
think?
Yeah.
Like that's one thing, like especially right now, like that's all I'm kind of looking for in entertainment, because we talked
Yeah.
about last week, we talked about Bill and Ted Face the Music, and me and Brian gushed about it for 20 minutes on the show. Like we loved it. And
No, not us.
no, not at all. And for that, I just had a big smile on my face, and that's the entertainment I want right now. So, but yeah, you're working on it right now. You have an artist. You are the writer.
Yep.
Some of the things we should probably promote here is you do have a Facebook page. It is Polarized 73 on Facebook.
Yep.
And you do also have a couple of items up on your website as well. What is it? The poster artwork.
Poster, and then also a pre-order for, we're doing this in sections. So this pre-order will be for, it's going to be about 22 page, but it's the first act of the book. So it'll be released as a larger graphic novel in a whole. The way that I'm saying why you want to buy this is it helps us. It helps our artists buy supplies so that we can do this project. That's the biggest issue that we're running into. That's the biggest issue I've had in the 2 years. And that 22 page book, this is the one time I want to do something like this because I got 13 ideas for books coming up. This is the one time I want to do this. So this could be a very collectible piece. So once we get the full book launched, it's done. It's not going to be available anymore. So,
right, there's the pitch, people listening. This is a one-time only opportunity.
Yes.
Available right now, polarized73.com. I will put all the links in all the podcast stuff and on our YouTube as well. And so I'm gonna segue this from one fantasy world of Polarized to another, which is Return to Oz. So Return to Oz, guys, let's talk about this movie. Because I know, Schwanke, this was your first time.
Yep.
We popped his Return to Oz cherry.
Oh my.
Yep.
I vividly remember this movie growing up, more so on the cover art for the movie. I never owned it, but I constantly rented it from the library, and the cover for the movie always threw me off. I always was like, who are all these other people? Why is Scarecrow like in the back? Who is this pumpkin guy? Why is there a fat Tin Man? Why is she holding a chicken and not a dog? Like, what is going on here? Because I grew up on Wizard of Oz, and Brian, I know you have a deep connection to Wizard of Oz because your mom collects a lot of Wizard of Oz stuff.
Just a couple things.
So, is this something you grew up with in your house?
In my house?
Yeah,
no,
Return to Oz.
In fact, actually, the part that's hilarious about it is I actually had to introduce my mother to Return of Oz, and that was only within the last 5-6 years, if even that, to the point where she's like, I did not even know this was a thing. Mind you, this is also the same woman who owns multiple copies of the author's books, and she has some like encyclopedia type of book of the different characters and things about the Wizard of Oz universe. And she was showing me TikTok, and she's like, why is the Tin Man short and fat? I'm like, because that's not Tin Man, that's TikTok. Well, who's TikTok? Why am I educating you on this when you are the one who absolutely loves all this? Yeah, no, I had to explain it to her.
And that's one thing that growing up, I never knew like Wizard of Oz had this big like Lord of the Rings style lore behind it all. I was like, oh, it's just Wizard of Oz and it's based on a book. No, there's like a dozen books and encyclopedias and maps and Like it's a whole big fantasy realm that I just never knew existed until like a year or two ago.
Right.
And I knew Return to the Oz was a pseudo sequel to the Judy Garland classic Wizard of Oz movie. Definitely more based on the original source material. And the one movie I kind of compare Return to Oz to is last year's Doctor Sleep. Oddly enough, because Doctor Sleep the movie was a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, while also being a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's, or not Stephen King's The Shining book, and being an adaptation of Stephen King's Doctor Sleep. And that's pretty much what this movie is. It's in many ways a sequel to the Judy Garland movie, while also being a sequel and adaptation to the Wizard of Oz book series.
Yep.
And again, like Dr. Sleep, I think it rides that line perfectly well. It adds new elements, but it never is confusing if you never read the book version of Wizard of Oz. And yeah, so let's jump into what's the plot of the movie. This is set, I believe they say 6 months after her first trip to Oz. Dorothy is a young girl in this one. She's not Judy Garland's aged. She is, a 10-year-old girl. She is sent to a psychiatric hospital because her aunt and uncle want her to forget about Oz and all the made-up stuff she has come to believe happened to her. And basically, they're going to give her a lobotomy so she forgets all that. And
Perfect.
Yeah.
What?
In this kid's movie, 15 minutes in, they're going to give her electroshock therapy.
Welcome to the 80s when doing that to a child in a movie. The first 15 minutes of the movie was completely okay.
Yeah, there's so much stuff in this movie that we got to talk about how they got away with it with a PG rating.
Yeah.
But anyway, she is basically she escapes the mental hospital and finds herself back in Oz. And this is not the Oz she remembers, nor the audience, because you know what? All the characters you loved, well, they're basically dead. And the Emerald City, which is one of the most beautiful places ever to be put on screen,
it's the most disgusting, dirty looking,
filled with graffiti and nasty. So basically, Dorothy has to go find the Scarecrow, who was the king of Emerald City, and restore Oz back to its glory. And oh my God, like this is a wild movie. Yeah, so let's start right at the beginning. First, like we said, 15 minutes. She ends up in a hospital, gonna get electrocuted, so she forgets about all her crazy fantasies. Oh, the 1900s, early 1900s.
Oh, the things we can do with electricity.
Yeah. So that's like the first thing I coming across at this time now as an adult is, yeah, they don't shy away from like showing dark and scary stuff. This is definitely not your mom's Wizard of Oz.
No,
not at all.
Yeah. So Logan, this was your first time watching Return to Oz. Is that the thing that stuck out to you most? Is how dark this version is?
It really kind of did, but and to say that, I also feel like they were trying to be accurate about it. Like, from what I understood early on watching the movie, it was like this doctor was traveling around, but then it was like, well, no, he's just opening up for everybody or whatever. Has this new shock therapy, and it's, why would you think a 10-year-old girl needs that?
because she's crazy and she talks about talking lions.
Yeah. Yeah, what 10-year-old doesn't talk about talking lions?
Right.
Because it was the early 1900s and she was a witch.
She was a witch.
Yeah.
Welcome. I guess we didn't realize that she lived outside of Salem.
Yeah.
It's right next to Kansas. Yeah, that's just what. So there's so much in this movie, because then when she finally gets to Oz, they introduce stuff that is definitely in the books that is never introduced in earlier adaptations of Wizard of Oz, like the Deadly Desert. Like that's not in the Judy Garland movie. Like you touch the sand, like you die. You turn into sand and break into pieces. It's like, oh my God, why is that in a kid's movie?
Or the Wheelers.
And let's talk about the Wheelers. The Wheelers are goddamn terrifying.
Right?
Okay.
This is what a motorcycle gang looks like in Oz. Like if Oz had a motorcycle gang, that's what the Wheelers are.
It's basically them like
A coked out.
it's basically them. They're like, oh, the flying monkeys. Those were kind of scary. Well, let's give like that type a bunch of wheels and weird mask and have them riding around on all fours and cackling the entire time. It's like, oh no.
Maybe this is why we were able to get such a dark and twisted characters in Labyrinth, because they're like, well, you know what? Disney can pull out something dark like this, so why not? Why can't we? People are already scared by now.
I think this is the scariest one we've done so far, and probably is the scariest one we'll do in this entire series.
Yeah,
I think there's there's a headless lady in this movie.
She's got a head. She's got multiple
heads. Yeah. So when she
and not even like a Hydra, like a decapitate herself and start over again.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is she escapes. She finds her way out of the deadly desert by jumping on all the rocks to get out. Along the way, Dorothy is with her hen from her farm in Kansas that all of a sudden can now speak when she's in Oz, Bellina. Even though
because all animals talk in Oz.
Logan brought up a great point.
Toto didn't talk in the first movie.
Toto's like,
Toto got the shaft. He should have talked.
They're like, the question is, does Toto talk in the books though?
I don't know. Huh? I read the books in elementary, the first one, and I don't remember if I don't think he does. But anyway, yeah, she's there with her hen from the farm. Bellina, who now in Oz, chickens are like they're
the kryptonite
thing. Yes, they're the kryptonite to everyone involved there. And as we find out in the final,
they're not necessarily they're the kryptonite to the trolls.
Yes, and everybody is definitely afraid of them, of the bad guys. They're all like, once they hear that a hen is in Oz, they're like, oh no, that's it. We're doomed.
Like, we're doomed.
But it's a chicken. Why are you doomed?
I
just find that really funny. They don't explain it until the last act. Why?
They're allergic to salmonella.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So when they end up back in the Emeralds, or they end up back in Oz, Dorothy and her hen Bellina. They find Dorothy's house that she crash landed in the first time she ended up there. Still looks the same, except right next to it is supposed to be the Yellow Brick Road, and apparently she lands. She obviously landed in Munchkin Land. There are no Munchkins. She mentions, where are they? They never explain where they went. I could have used some Munchkins in this movie. And they find that the Yellow Brick Road is the grossest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, much like the rest of this movie. It's in shambles, completely destroyed, not the classic, MGM looking. This is not the MGM Wizard of Oz this time around. And when she finds, so basically I want us to get to Emerald City, because when we get there, she finds everybody in Emerald City is now made of stone, and Emerald City is just gross and destroyed. And she finds Tin Man and Cowardly Lion just turned into stone, breaking many of the like some of our favorite characters, like just gone. Like they're not in this movie. They're there for 30 seconds and that's it.
Yeah.
And basically. That's so, like when I was a kid, I grew up watching Wizard of Oz like 3 times a day sometimes. So when I watched this, I was like, what happened to Cowardly Lion? Why is Tin Man stone?
Yeah.
Where's Scarecrow? Somebody help.
Everything's gone.
Yeah, it's like, and that's one thing that I really like about this movie. It has a great setup for that, because you're reintroduced to Oz and Dorothy.
Yep.
But this is no longer the Oz and Dorothy you remember, because everything is very different. And then, like, they get rid of the characters that you know and love, and introduce the Wheelers and scare the crap out of you.
Yep.
And then you get to go meet TikTok, and you get introduced to all the new characters along the way.
Mhm.
And watching it now this time, because as a kid, I didn't love this movie. This is a very strange movie to me.
Because as a kid, you probably are like, this is not my Wizard of Oz.
Yes. It's like I said, I'm like, Cowardly Lion and Tin Man are made of stone this entire time. What's happening?
Mhm.
But that's what I think this movie does really well now, watching it as an adult, is, yeah, we loved those guys the first time we hung out with them. You know, the three friends she meets along in the first movie.
Mhm.
But now we get introduced to new characters, and I also really like them.
Yeah.
Jack is great.
Jack, I love Jack Pumpkinhead. I think he might have been an inspiration for a later Disney character.
Maybe.
But yeah, like TikTok. I really like TikTok. He has a great use of like his character. He's a general in the Oz army, which is also introduced. Apparently, Oz has an army. And he has these wind-up mechanisms for his brain, his thoughts, and for his
Motion.
motion.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great, like, in many ways, they kind of combine a lot of like Cowardly Lion, Scarecrow, and Tin Man into multiple characters that they introduce here. Because like TikTok is basically the Scarecrow and the Tin Man put together. Because if his brain's not working, which Scarecrow's brain was non-existent,
Yeah.
like he could still talk, and that's the same case with TikTok. He can still talk even without a brain. Dorothy has a great line that kind of calls back to Scarecrow's line in the first movie. People who don't have a lot of brains do an awful lot of talking sometimes. And they have a very similar line in this. It gets a good chuckle.
Yep.
But yeah, so basically she meets up with TikTok. TikTok is now like her guide through this new Oz. And this is when she goes to Mombi's castle, because they figure out from one of the Wheelers that Mombi knows where Scarecrow is. And that's kind of the whole plot here, is we want to get Scarecrow back. So we get to Mombi's castle. Mombi is she a princess in this? She's basically like
she's like the evil queen.
Yeah, she's the evil queen here. She's kind of this version's Wicked Witch.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of the second to our big bad in the movie, the Gnome King. And basically what we've mentioned, we've brought it up before, she does not have a head. She has multiple heads in cases, and she can switch them out whenever she wants.
She basically took all the pretty girls, when they turned them to stone, took their heads that she could be whoever she wants to be.
That's so messed up. And that's why I feel like every 20 minutes in this movie, it's like, oh no, that's really dark. Like, dark.
I do love the fact that while we're speaking about the evil queen that she is and whatnot, is that they do the exact same thing for Return of Oz that they did with Wizard of Oz, in terms of the real world versus the fantasy world, and using the same people, i.e. her
and the doctor is the Gnome King.
Yep.
Very much the same as what they do with
the Wicked Witch.
The Wicked Witch, who is her neighbor, and the fortune teller, who is Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that definitely keeps in the same theme of both movies together. But yeah, this is where we meet Jack Pumpkinhead, aka live action Jack Skellington.
Yep.
I love the look of this character, and that's one thing I think we've echoed quite a bit in doing this series, is practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And this has great practical effects too.
Well, you pretty much kind of had to in the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody had Star Wars money.
No, and they didn't, but I mean, they had Disney money here in the 80s, but Disney was a very different place here in the 80s. They were not our beloved 90s Disney anymore, or yet. This was a dark time for Disney. They had this, and what was Black Cauldron. Like these two movies are very dark and aimed for kids, and did not hit that same like Mickey Mouse demographic that Disney has always been known for.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they took risks back then. I think that's really cool. But yeah, the character design in this movie is really great. Like, I don't know about you guys. I'll ask you guys right now. And we'll get to our other character that we meet later too, is Gump, who basically once they meet Jack Skellington, Jack Pumpkinhead, they have to devise a plan to escape, and they take this powder that brings things to life, and they put it on a giant moose head and a bunch of furniture and some leaves, and make a weird concoction flying machine. And we get introduced to Gump, who is the moose head character. So out of all these new characters, which one do you guys like the most? TikTok, Jack Pumpkinhead, Gump, Belina.
I've always been a huge fan of TikTok. Like I enjoyed TikTok. Call him maybe like the more advanced version of the Tin Man. But I don't know. There was something about the fact that, he knew who she was, even though that she didn't know who he was, and, immediately went into defense mode of, I'm going to do everything I can to protect her. And yeah, TikTok is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I really like Jack in it because they did the practical effects so well. You could actually see his emotions based on. There were times you noticed when he was happy or frightened or something or whatever, his head actually changes shape a bit. Like it'll raise up or it'll shrink down depending on what he's feeling, so that you can still see his emotions. I thought that was just awesome to see. It's like adding that animation to a practical effect, which awesome.
Yeah, that's like the spooky kid in me. Jack is my favorite. I just love the look of him. He's like Scarecrow, like the bigger, like these feel like Pokemon almost. Like this is the next evolved version of the characters we got the first time. It's like, oh, you get a Scarecrow? Well, now you get a Scarecrow with a big pumpkin head. Oh, you like the Tin Man? Now you get the Tin Man who can like swing his arms around and beat up people. Like you like the Cowardly Lion, a character that walks on all fours? Well, now you get a moose head on a couch put together that can fly. It's like, oh my God. And that's one thing I love about this movie. There's so much creative like the creative juices are just flowing this entire movie. It almost feels like they kind of had a limitless budget in many ways. I mean, they're limited in terms of some of the practical or special effects that we get in this. Like the flying stuff isn't great, but they had yet to perfect how you could do flying.
I'd say it was also 85. So.
Yeah. And I even in Neverending Story, we touched on that too. The flying doesn't look great. It's better in that than this, but it works for the movie. And I like all that. That's all the practical effects in this are great. And it does feel like they have almost a limitless budget and they can kind of just do whatever they want. It doesn't feel like anyone from Disney was like, are you sure you want to do that in a kid's movie?
Yeah.
One thing that I kind of look at this here, and again, this is me, someone who's never read the books, is Return to Oz more of taking more artistic license and really going the extra mile, or is Return to Oz more prone to be more like the books, whereas maybe MGM, when they did the original Wizard of Oz, is more of a toned down, because they're considering when they made the movie, there was maybe aspects of the book and things like that that they were afraid they couldn't do, or maybe they couldn't do for the sake of ability. I almost want to say that, knowing how these kind of stories are, is I want to say is that maybe is Disney is like, you know what, we're going to be more true to the books than what MGM was. And I'm hoping that's the case, but I cannot confirm nor deny, but I'm hoping that's what the case is.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And the MGM movie, which I think is one of the greatest movies ever, it definitely took elements that would work cinematically at that time from the books and left a lot of stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, from the little bit of research I've done on the book series, is definitely more in line of tone and characters and landscapes and like the demographics of where we are in the world, more aligned with the book. And that leads me, I've never watched the Oz the Great and Powerful, the James Franco Sam Raimi movie that came out almost 10 years ago.
God, it's already been that long.
I wonder, have you seen that movie? Brian?
No.
Okay, I haven't either, and I have not heard great things, but it makes me want to go check it out because I want to see if that is more in tone with like this in terms of adapting some of the source material, or if it's more of like, no, we got to try to do more of the classic MGM stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but then once we'll kind of get into the final act, and I have one other person we need to talk about in this movie. So the final act, they end up on the Gnome King's mountain, where the Scarecrow now is, and the Scarecrow has been turned into an ornament, part of the Gnome King's collection. And basically, Dorothy and her new friends are all given the task of, they are each one by one sent into his collection, and they have to try to find which of these ornaments is the Scarecrow. And I do like that they add a little bit of like, Dorothy actually has to do some thinking in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, TikTok is really great in this scene because he fakes that he is malfunctioned and his action has run down just so he can get Dorothy in there at the same time. It doesn't really pay off, but I like that he's a thinking robot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically they figure out that anything green in that collection is from the Emerald City. She finds a green emerald, and it's the Scarecrow, and she wishes him back to life, and she gets all of her friends back. And in doing so, the Gnome King gets pissed off.
He gets a little mad.
Mad. He's going to eat Jack Pumpkinhead until he finds out that Bellina has been hiding in Jack Pumpkinhead's head for the last 30 minutes of the movie, and she lays an egg, and it goes down into he swallows the egg. Turns out eggs are poison to gnomes, and they all die.
Oops.
They don't explain it, but I don't care. I like it.
He's allergic to salmonella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, no one else in this world is afraid of a chicken egg, but gnomes, it's evil to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's basically Emerald City is restored. Oz is back to normal. They again want Dorothy to stay, but she can't, and she finds her way back to the real world. And
you forgot about the princess the whole time.
And that's one thing we need to bring up: the princess.
The princess.
Yep.
I like the princess, but that's the one little knock I have on this. Just let Dorothy stay.
Like, she doesn't want to go home. Sounds like she wants to go home. She misses her family.
But I get it, but like, all her friends in Oz are her family, and they all want her to stay. It's like, why would you leave? Just stay. Real world sucks.
The real world does suck. Your house gets hit by tornadoes.
Yeah.
Throws you off into a whole different land.
Your psychiatric hospital burns down. It's not a good time. I would want to hang out in Oz.
I think that if had this movie done much better in the 80s when this was not a cult classic type of thing now, mm-hmm. I think we would have seen what would have happened next. I think Disney would have banked on trying to do that again, but being that this was a box office failure, I could see why they're like, okay, we're closing the chapter on that one.
Yeah. Logan, what do you think of the ending? Should she have stayed? Should she have go?
There's a lot of me that says she should have stayed because as a whole, she was happier there. Nobody
mm-hmm.
believed her. Everybody was saying stay, but at the end, her coming back was better for the people around her. Like her father or uncle, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, uncle was a bump on the log before she disappeared, and then she disappeared, and all of a sudden he finishes the house miraculously before winter. After they find
he because of magic.
Yeah. One guy can finish a house in 2 months.
Heck yeah. Especially back in those days, back when you didn't have all the power tools like today.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You can do that. One of the things we haven't touched upon that I really wanted to kind of throw out there, just because I want one. I want one is I want a tree that grows me lunch pails. I need a lunch pail growing tree because, man, there goes my grocery bill.
Right?
Like, I want one of those. Like, that was one of the best parts I loved about that movie, even as a kid. I'm like, screw money growing on trees. I want to be able to just go into the backyard and grab me some dinner.
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on the cast of the movie because we have to touch on it, and I'm looking up some of the behind the scenes stuff that I didn't know about, and we'll get to that. But first, we got to talk about Dorothy, because I think Fairuza Balk is fantastic in this movie.
Oh, she's perfect for it.
She is really good in this movie for a child actress.
And I always kind of chuckle and be like, and then Dorothy grew up and became the crazy chick from The Craft.
Or The Water Boy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Talk about like a downward spiral. No.
Oh, she had a great 90s, though. And I find it really interesting. She starts off here taking on an iconic role, trying to step into the ruby slippers of Judy Garland, and does a fantastic. She's a great Dorothy. Yeah, that's the one, and it's a very accurate Dorothy, because Judy Garland's Dorothy in Wizard of Oz was supposed to be this age, and we were always supposed to believe that. Never once do I believe that in ever watching that movie. But in this case, she definitely fits that younger, bright-eyed girl who wants to travel to a fantasy world better than Judy Garland does. Not saying one is better than the other. I think both fit very well in the stories that they are doing, and for the time that the movies came out. Yeah, but some of the other casts and characters, some people that we have talked about already in this series. Puppeteers for Jack Pumpkinhead include Brian Henson, so Jim Henson's son, and then the Tin Man is puppeteered by Deep Roy.
Nice.
So we talked about Deep Roy in Neverending Story. And then let's see, what was the other one? Oh, TikTok. One of the puppeteers on that played Admiral Akbar in the Star Wars movies. Admiral Akbar.
Heck yeah.
So missed opportunity to say, Dorothy, it's a trap, but that's all right.
No, but that would have been hilarious as hell, though.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
So yeah, and again, we should probably touch on something you mentioned earlier, the box office. This was a box office bomb. Only made $11 million at the box office.
On a $25 million budget.
It received mixed reviews coming out. Yeah, this is some of the things that were praised, obviously, and I think we kind of praised it, is it is a more faithful adaptation of the Oz books from L. Frank Baum. I'm looking at some of the critics did not like how dark the tone of the movie was, and it was too intense for children. Yeah, it was.
So I was looking up Frank L. Baum and just looking in general, like on Amazon, looking for like books and stuff like that. I think this is part of that might be, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that we're talking about the fact that there isn't a Return to Oz book, at least from what I'm gathering. So it might be like a combination of maybe different elements from different stories, maybe, and maybe that's what's off-putting about it. Because yeah, I'm not finding there at least there isn't one that's explicitly named Return to Oz, but I can't say if that means that it was
one of the books.
Right. Yeah.
This
so like
was based on I think it's the second and the third book in the series.
Which is, I just had it here. There we go. The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz,
Yes.
which now that I think about it, Ozma, I believe, is the princess, is the girl.
The young princess. Yep.
Yes. So yeah, you're probably right, and maybe it's more of that, and so maybe that's why maybe some people, because I was actually just about to look up the Rotten Tomatoes when you're like, yeah, the critics hated it.
Yeah, they were definitely torn on this one. But since we're talking about L. Frank Baum, we have a South Dakota connection with L. Frank Baum. He
We
lived
do?
in South Dakota for many years, and the description of Kansas in the Wizard of Oz books is based on South Dakota.
Well, what couldn't it just be based off, like, I don't know, Kansas?
Well, he didn't live in Kansas, so it was based
so
off his time in South Dakota.
So two of like the most like iconic type of like that time frame, I think of Wizard of Oz and I think of like Little House on the Prairie, and both of those we can bring back to South Dakota. So I'm completely okay with that.
Yes, it is. So we're bringing in the 605. Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a fun little connection. I actually never knew that before. But yeah, so that's a fun connection to us back in South Dakota here. Let's wrap this up, though. Everybody go around. We gave our favorite character. Let's give our favorite scene from Return to Oz and our final thoughts. Throw it off to our guest, Mr. Schwanke.
I'd have to say my favorite scene would have to be when they create Gump. Like from start to beginning where she breaks away and you just have this headless body running around a room trying to find where she's trying to go. Like you have 30 heads going, no, go over there, no, go over there, go over there. And she's just trying to find out where her one main head is. And she just winds up smashing through because it's like, what does she do without the key? What she has to smash glass. So I just from that point of her getting the elixir, stealing the key, to getting upstairs, and you have TikTok who all of a sudden is just rambling off, Jack Pumpkinhead, do this, go over there, go do that, as his thinkings wind down, and you have Jack going, what? I don't know what to do. Just that chaos that creates by it, and it does kind of create this thing, well, we're all the not secure for later on in the movie, just how everything about that scene, there was so much like, this is high risk, but it also mixed in these just little bits of comedy of like, oh, of course, his thinking wound out. And you're just kind of laughing at the point that he's just now yelling nonsense. Well, it's a high stress situation. He can't be yelling nonsense, but he is the thinker of the group. So just that entire scene for me was, because from my perspective watching it now, I'm older, I'm not a kid, there was a lot more of a tone for me watching it that it's a lighthearted, feel-good movie by the end of it. So,
Brian, what about you? That's a really good scene.
Yeah.
No, and it's hard to top that, to be honest. Like, what else can we talk about? I'm like, that's a fantastic point. I don't know, just overall, I've always enjoyed this film. This is one of the reasons, like, when I started going through my 80s fantasy binge, which is what kind of stemmed this series, this was immediately one. I'm like, I'm going to have to watch this. I mean, yeah, that whole scene when they create Gump and whatnot is great. I don't know. The only thing I can think of here is one that definitely like sticks in my mind is when Dorothy goes to get that stuff that is able to create Gump and bring him to life and whatnot. She's going through those cabinets and she wakes up Mombi in her head, and just the look on her face, that's enough to give a child nightmares. So that would be the other one I'd have to say would be like stick out in my head is the scene preceding that.
Yeah, I think because I've watched this now twice in the last year. I watched it on Disney Plus earlier this year, and then again for this. And the scene that still sticks out to me and still like legit gives me chills watching this kids movie is the Wheelers showing up. They are a terrifying creature, which is it's a fantastic creature design. It's stuntmen on all four wheels, hunched over, riding around through the destroyed Emerald City. It's a fantastic looking visual and a great like practical effect from the stuntman, but it is also terrifying as an audience member. Like even Dorothy, like she gets there and she sees the sign "Beware the Wheelers." She's like, I don't know them. Like imagine if you're her in that situation. You showed up and Emerald City is the greatest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. And now it's destroyed, and all of a sudden you need to watch out for wheelers. And you're like, what's a wheeler?
What?
And then they show up, and you're like, oh, that's what a wheeler is. So yeah, I think that's easily my favorite scene in this. So yeah, I think all three of us again recommend Return to Oz.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, go in and knowing that this is not the Judy Garland Wizard of Oz. This is a dark fantasy film, and yeah, you're gonna have a good time. Again, I would be wary of if your kids at that point. I would say if your kids already like Nightmare Before Christmas, that tone, this might be the next step up for them to handle some of the visuals in the movie at least.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap up our conversation here on Return to Oz, directed by Walter Murch, which we didn't even talk about. He's a fantastic.
Has he done things?
he has not done a whole. I think this is his only directorial effort. Is Return to Oz. But he is an editor on tons of movies, including Apocalypse Now, Ghost. What else did he do? He just did something not that long ago.
I would like
Tomorrowland. Like he's done a lot of movies.
I'd like to point out, because you brought up in regards to the darkness that is the Disney and whatnot. It looks like he's an uncredited writer to the Black Cauldron.
Makes sense. All right. So yeah, Return to Oz. Go check it out. It's on Disney Plus right now. Not your typical Disney Plus fare, but definitely is. If you're in like everybody's getting ready for the Halloween season, this seems like a good.
This would be a good way
setter.
to like kind of move into that.
And they mentioned Halloween. It's like a couple days before Halloween or something like that. They mentioned in the movie. So Jack Pumpkinhead is very much a Halloween-inspired character. So go check it out. But yeah, let's wrap up this conversation. Logan, I'm going to throw it to you. I'll have you give where the people can find your comic book and where they can follow you online for everything Polarized.
Yep. So pretty much like Casey said earlier, we do have a website set up. We want to make that kind of like our hub where we can have discussions. I got a blog post up there. We're going to start forming a blog as we get into this process of getting this book to publishing. So that's Polarized73, I want to say is the website.com. And then also, go follow us on Facebook. It'll be a huge help just to get the word out. And if you can't spend money, like buy a poster or buy a pre-order, just sharing is the biggest thing we need to know, or we need right now is just getting the word out there so that we can take this book further than we might be able to if you don't. So. And that's at Polarized73 on Facebook.
Yes. Please share. Sharing is caring, guys.
Yep. Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. So, go check it out. Polarized on Facebook and on Polarized73.com. We got to plug some of the things we got going on here. You can find this podcast and all of our other podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and on YouTube. And also check out our website, backlot605.com, for our latest movie news, reviews, articles, and anything else Backlot 605 related. Where can they find us on the social medias?
That's all, folks.
Yes. Well, not yet. We got to let them know where the social media is.
I know. It's just like you're like They can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we like to get all that information out, keeping up with everybody, as well as the South Dakota Film Community Group here on Facebook. Join the conversation. Tell us what you're. We like to follow, throw out there what's people watching for the weekends, what's everybody got going on, that sort of thing. Definitely join in the conversation. We like to hear from everybody.
Absolutely. And next week, we are continuing the 1980s fantasy film series. We're going to be talking about Willow. So that'll be next week's movie to watch. Again, that one is available on Disney Plus as well. Disney Plus is not sponsoring us at all. They don't know we exist. But yeah, that's next week.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be kind of cool. But
I
yeah,
would be completely okay with that.
I would too.
Big brother.
I will be a Disney show. So that is Willow. Go check it out before next week's show. And again, special thanks to our guest, Mr. Schwanke. Howdy ho. Brian, you got to sign off for this week.
Do I have a sign off?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a sign off. What did I even do last week? I don't even remember.
I don't know if you had one, but I'll have a sign off. But
Well, you'll sign off?
That's all, folks.
Don't get us in trouble with Warner Brothers and Porky Pig.
We're with Disney now. That's right.
Right, exactly.
Oh no, crossing the streams.
Oh no.
Only Who Framed Roger Rabbit can do that. So anyway,
And so well.
thank you all for listening to this week's episode, and we'll check you out next time in the backlot of South Dakota.
Bye-bye.